Etienne y a todos.
Hello, greetings, Etienne and everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Recording in progress.
And for people that doesn't know me, I am Amira. I'm from Puerto Rico. And we're climate change, Caribbean climate change. And we're here for climate change justice for everyone due to this crisis. And today is a section pretty special because we are going to get to know more about our colleagues from the Pacific. They have a lot of experience, many years for their nonprofit organization in the island, helping people in and outside of the Pacific for the climate change. So no, don't be afraid of asking questions. We're gonna hear today about a lot of things that they do, and also about the things that how we can collaborate with them, um, being people that live in different islands, have the same struggles. Doesn't matter that we are apart on different parts of the globe. So now I'm going to lend it to George and Jane today so that they can speak to us of what they work with.
Thank you, Amira. Malo Lele. Jay, can you please share your slides? Yeah, welcome and thank you for inviting us to be with you all. My name is George and I am the Pacific organizer based in Fiji. And I'm here with Jacinta, who is our campaigner, and she's calling in from Melbourne, Australia. Jay, are you able to? Yeah. Please bear with us while we try and get the slides up on screen. Lovely. And today, Jacinta and I will share some stories about who we are and how we got involved with the Pacific Climate Warriors, and also some of the organizing we do here in the Pacific region. We also will keep an eye on time, and hopefully we can have some time at the end for some questions if there's any. But we do have our contacts as well that will be available to you all so that you, if you have any questions, you can send that through. Jay?
Hi, everyone. So basically, in a nutshell, George and I are part of the 350 Pacific team, and our volunteers are known as the Pacific Climate Warriors. They make up a network of about 18 teams in total. And so our role in the team is to support their work in their communities who are fighting climate change. And for those who prefer to visualize where our network is located, this is a very blurry map, but our countries are very small, but we prefer to reference the size of our ocean, the biggest ocean in the world, the Pacific. And so these flags are our country teams. So we have one team per country in most places. And then the stars, so you can see a star in a few stars in Australia, New Zealand, and we have one in America. And these represent our diaspora teams. So yeah, that's just a quick reference to a map. But this is our structure that describes all of our work in our network. And it's explained through the structure of a traditional home, specifically a fale inside the island of Samoa. So our country teams are here that form the foundation. This is our Pacific Climate Warriors on the bottom who hold up our pillars. And our pillars represent each of the groups and regions of our network. So we have our Micronesian teams, Melanesian teams, Polynesia teams, our diaspora teams. And we also have a pillar to represent our youth, because some of us in this work can't call ourselves youth anymore. And then we have our Council of Elders, who represent the strong beam in the structure and basically keep all of this work together. And then George and I and our team would be the roof, and we provide a lot of the administrative duties, resources to our network. And it works as a cycle to keep our work sustainable so that it would last even beyond my time in this team. But a few offerings about this model is, as mentioned, we've identified the need to sustain our work and ensure that resources and information can be shared. We've also adapted an existing model from our own culture to allow ownership and navigation to this network. And we change our structure every time our strategy changes. So this is a model we used for our recent strategy. So as we moved into our new one, we're in another country, looking at new resources, our new surroundings, and we've come up with a new structure. And it's just to respond to the evolution of our network. G? You're mute.
Apologies, apologies for that. Yeah, and a big part of the work in the Pacific that we do is with these whole global structures and all, we try and contextualize it to what suits us in the Pacific. So the way we see our network and the way we support each other is through a traditional fale, a house. So thanks, Jay, for speaking to that. There's a couple of streams of work that we identified and categorized into a basket. So our work in the Pacific is categorized in these 3 baskets. For our organizing work, the first basket is that's our Pacific Power Basket, and that's like our organizing, our network development. That all falls into this basket of work. The middle basket, which is our Webinado, that's the Marshallese word for storytelling. This basket of work holds all our work around shifting narrative, storytelling in both traditional and digital in both traditional and digital media. And our last basket of work is our mobilization and campaign basket, and that's called Matangi Malohi, which is the Tokelauan word for strong winds. And some offerings, the work of contextualizing our strategy into this package that our network can receive and own is, for example, the use of our women. We use woven baskets because it's a practice traditionally done by women. It's an ode to the role women play in nurturing family, keeping traditions and customs alive as well has been the role of passing on knowledge. Hence the reason why we use baskets to portray our work. Our Pacific Power Basket. So this is our organizing and network development that we do here in the Pacific. Just an overview. This basket holds the work to inspire individuals and take actions to grow leadership, also diversifying, supporting, link and growing groups within the movement. And some of the tools that we use here in the Pacific within this basket is the menu of tasks, which I'll explain later, more about later. We have one-on-one check-ins, a lot of engagement. A big part of the organization we do is in our trainings, and also this concept around the new structure. New structure of organizing. This helps us identify where and how effectively we sustain our network by identifying the resources they need to mobilize during our campaigns and do impactful work as we grow in depth and in size. Some of you might be familiar with the commitment circle or the onion model. This in itself, again, we've contextualized this model to suit the Pacific. So we have the outer shell of the coconut being the observer. Then as you move into the layers within, you have the followers, endorsers, contributors. And as you move in closer to the apple or to the center of the coconut, you have owner and leadership. And this helps us with identifying the types of resources that's needed for people, the warriors within our movement. Some of the tools, as mentioned earlier, menu of tasks. This basically is, the menu of tasks is no man is an island, no one can do the work alone. It's important to delegate tasks. So that's one of the things we use. One-on-one check-ins is important as well. Yeah, ask most people how they got involved with an environmental activist group, and they'll tell you that someone talked to them and asked them to get involved. It can be effective as to write letters, send petitions, do rallies, but really get most people involved. We have to ask them to help us. So yeah, those one-on-ones are very important. Jay? The ladder of engagement, another tool that we use is just to meet people where they're at. So if a new person comes in within the Pacific Climate Water Network, the ask will be slightly different from a person who's been within the group for a number of years, right? So a new entry into Pacific Climate Waters, we would just ask them to maybe paint a banner or send out, give out petitions, whereas as they move up the ladder of engagement, they will take more mentorship roles, facilitative roles. So that's one of the tools that we use. A big part of how we've been able to sustain our network and really grow is through our trainings. And yeah, it's a huge part of how we diversify the movement by ensuring our network have the necessary tools and resources they need to engage meaningfully, which is key to building the movement. And just one of the events, and thank goodness that we are able to meet face to face now, that one of the events we're planning for in our training series is a Pacific Power Shift, where we are trying to bring about 100 Pacific Climate Warriors together for a week. So that's something we're looking forward to. Jay?
Thanks, G. So I'll be going through our Matangi Malohi basket, as G mentioned. The Pacific Climate Warriors have done some incredible and inspiring actions that to us is very iconic. And the first time I learned about climate change was in 2014. And it was the Pacific Climate Warriors Day of Action, their first one. And it was a canoe flotilla at the world's biggest coal port in Australia, which is where I'm from. And this photo on the screen in front of you is of one of those canoes, and you can see a coal ship just in the distance in the back. It was huge, and they're carrying tons and tons of coal, and it's that's to be shipped across the world outside. And my role on the day was to look after food and drinks, but even I knew, like, being there and witnessing this historic moment, that it wasn't just for the climate movement, but it was like a lesson on what fighting for justice could look like for young Pacific Islanders. And so I've been a part of this work ever since this day. And I don't know if you can see George, but George is in one of these canoes too. Or maybe he's in the smaller canoe in the back. But yeah, it's definitely an honor to be able to serve my communities in this way and watch our people grow in their leadership, witness incredible and inspiring moments become iconic and history in the making. So in this work, we're doing a lot of things for the first time, which is really exciting. Next slide. So the Matangi Malohi basket holds our campaigns and mobilizations work, and it's our strong winds that will power our sails of our canoes. It's the strong winds that will move our flags in our rallies, and it's the strong winds that will bring down the pillars of the fossil fuel industry. And I won't go through all the technical parts of this basket, but I will share some of the work that we do to build the foundation of this work in our strategies. So the first box is listing all the things that are in our current position, the things that we know. So we know our strategy, we know our goals, we know the capacity of our team and our network. We can also pull from the lessons from our past work. And we also know that in the year, there are big moments that we would like to show up and amplify our work, in those key moments. And then in our second box, these represent the things like our vision, where we want to be, what success looks like for us. And so we know we need to do work that, how do we package our campaigns so that our groups can run with them and take ownership of them? We know we want to make our network feel empowered and skilled. And the climate movement is still very white and very big. And so we need to make sure that our people can not only access the movement, but also feel safe in this movement. So the boxes down the bottom, the yellow boxes down here, they represent the things we need to do to bridge that gap from our current position to like helping us reach our goals. And this is more of just like a model of how we apply our work in every strategy. Next slide. Okay, so I won't read everything on the slide, but here I've just listed examples of the things that fall under those headings. So we know we do a lot of research. It's important that we get all our information right and accurate. We know consultations are very important to us. We can't do this work without our people, our leaders, our elders, and we know trainings and creative tactics are the two things for us, is what sets us apart from in the climate movement. This is where all our creativity and our culture falls in, is under trainings and creative tactics. Next slide. So using the model that I just shared earlier, this is like an example of how that would look in using our climate strikes from 2019. So we knew that the global climate strikes was going to be a big moment for the movement. It was the world's biggest demonstration of calling out world leaders for their inaction on climate change. And so our strategy was and always has been to shift the narrative of how the world views the Pacific. We also wanted to make sure that we worked at the pace of our communities and met them where they were at. So in Australia, climate movement is very fast, but activism in the Pacific moves at a much slower pace. So we wanted to make sure we match the pace of our Pacific communities. Another thing we had to be aware of is public protests for many Pacific nations goes against a lot of social norms. It's deemed disrespectful, it's very Western. And so we needed to not only socialize the idea of climate strikes, but again, making it safe and accessible. So for me, in Australia, back in 2014, when I started this work, you wouldn't very rarely see Pacific Islanders at a protest, especially on a Sunday. They were at church. And in 2019, when this happened, it was like you could see the Pacific Islander crowds were much bigger, much louder, and much more colorful. So these pink boxes kind of list a pathway of building a narrative, which is our research, our consultation work. Then we did storytelling, which is our trainings. We had teams hold local events where they could talk about climate impacts, fighting on the front lines. And there's my slide. And then Pacific Power Shift. This is our big trainings, our big youth camps where we upskill and bring in people to a more leadership role in their communities. And then our call to action was, come to the rallies. And this pathway took over a year. But this is how we were able to shift the narrative of how people view Pacific people in, protest and climate spaces. And so we had like an outburst of creativity. We had art competitions, banner making, art builds. A lot of our people dressed in traditional wear, which is something you only do within your family, but sharing this with the public was very new. But yeah, my offering here is that creativity and scarcity have a very wonderful relationship. And it's also a very powerful formula for us in the Pacific, where you can use what is available to you, your surroundings, your community, even your family as a resource to create. And it can be very powerful. And so there is the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think there's more. I think that's half the sentence, but basically it means that no matter how well designed your strategic plan is, it will fall flat unless your team and your community shares the appropriate culture. And culture is very rich in our team and in our region. And that's how we were able to create a lot of this like first time things for our network, declarations, meeting Pacific leaders at UN spaces, doing trainings on and offline. We created our own news outlet. Instead of BBC News, we have BBC News. Say means flower for a lot of our countries. And that's how we share information to our communities. Canoe flotillas, weaving mats, the list goes on. But this will take us to our solutions work, which is where we are at in the Pacific right now. So as I mentioned earlier, we're doing a lot of like research and consultation, but George and I did a Solar Scholars training, I think it was last year, and it was a pilot training on what it would look like for us to train our communities to build a solar pack in response to disasters. And this is what our solutions work is starting to look like. But yeah, that's just George. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And moving on from this Solar Scholars work, there's a few, we're hoping to implement this in the 3 regions, in 3 countries. And this is just the foundation work of what the possibilities are. So if you look at the photo at the bottom, that's a PV system that we built, and that's mounted on the wall, right? And that can power a laptop, phone, and 5 watt DC lights. And the whole part of this is to build a portable system that can be taken into disaster areas, impacted areas. But then again, this is like small scale. The possibilities of building bigger and better is endless. So this is just like the foundation work of the solutions work that we're doing.
And that's the end of our presentation. So I guess we can open the floor for questions or clarifying anything that we've shared. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for having us here.
Muchas gracias. Gracias por
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of this. And mostly thank you for waking up really early to be able to be here with us today. And I want to ask you a question. Mm, Because many of our volunteers want to do a similar project. And sometimes the main question is, where do I start? With all the things that we can do, where can I start? Do you have um, a special opinion that for some people that want to start a similar project based on your experience?
Jake, did you want to go?
Jake, ¿quiere?
Yeah. We've just started on developing, and Jay's working on this with our network development strategy on how we intake and how we get people started. We do have networks in various countries, so within the Pacific. So what we do is for people who want to join the movement, who are interested in it, we link them up with contacts on the ground to join. And most of our interests come from online, right? So through social media or email. So, and then we just link them up with our teams on the ground. And we do also have a time where we just speak to them about the work. Okay.
No, you covered it. That was perfect.
Muchas gracias. ¿Alguna otra pregunta?
Thank you so much. Any other question?
So I didn't have so much of a question as I had a comment that creativity meets scarcity. That just, it resonated so much with me. So thank you so much. So there's another question that I could ask as well. I know that you said that a great support system are your elders, and of course, it's their experience of living longer than us and guiding us. So do you think that that is something critical? Because I feel like in the Caribbean region, we focus a lot on youth, but to me, especially the elders are the ones that have so much of that capacity that needs to be passed on. So I don't know if you want to just give an extra comment about that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean with this work is very youth focused, because for me, living in the diaspora in Australia, considering getting support from our elders or permission from our elders is like, no one thinks about that stuff. But it's something that I've learned and appreciated when we're working in the Pacific region, we use a lot of Pacific frameworks and try to like use those models as guides, and the whole relationship with our elders is such a key important part. And there's a metaphor that we have where if all of us are in a canoe, we have our young people who are powering the canoe, and we have our elders who sit at the back and they like give the directions. And we have our leaders who like basically are at the front and encouraging those who are paddling to like, keep the power up, basically. I totally messed up that metaphor, but I think you see what I'm saying there. And I'm just going to pass it to George to clean that up. But yeah, it's definitely something we see as important when it comes to organizing Pacific communities. G?
No, you answered that perfectly as well. But I see in the chat there's a question around agricultural contributions, encouraging better diet choices around eating less meat and that. While this is an important aspect of the work around climate change, our focus as an organization is mainly on keeping fossil fuels in the ground. But I mean, with other work around climate change, oceans and all that, we do solidarity work, but that's not our focus. Our focus is mainly on fossil fuels.
So hi, I'd like to say something. I am Margarita Elliott from Trinidad and Tobago, and want to express immense gratitude for your presentation. I liked the use of art and the different development. You could see you all use a lot of development models and strategies in your work. And I think that is important. For me, what stood out is your structure, in that I think was Jacinta was saying, once your strategy change, your structure change. So then you are organized and aligned to work based on what your documented strategy is. So then it's easy to account for what you do. And then, of course, maybe, um, you know, articulate whatever value added. For me, I like where you all are at in terms of solutions, because yes, the act up and articulating what the issues are is very critical, but we also need to take it to another phase where we teach people how to actually do the stuff to help the climate and to also do some adaptation. So for me, that is huge. You all are doing great work.
Thank you, Margaret. I think there was a comment in the chat about community organizing, and I think that's the most powerful thing that you could ever do within your community is give them the power to actually build themselves, right? Yeah, and thank you for sharing those that feedback, Naka.
Tengo otra pregunta.
I have another question. What would you say that is your biggest challenge when working within your region? For example, in the Caribbean, one of our challenges is burnout, and it's a region that doesn't have a lot of population working with climate change because we're all the same. We're the same people uh, from different countries, and we're all the same in 5 or 4 groups. So there are people that are really passionate what they do about their work and they want to make a difference, and that is why they participate in different groups. But naturally, they get tired because it's a lot of work. And I would like to know if it's something similar happens in your region, or if what will be your biggest challenge?
Thank you for the question. Very important question. Yes, we do struggle a lot with burnouts and not having enough capacity to carry this work. And COVID and all the other crises that happened around the same time really tested our structures and our network, and it revealed a lot of gaps that we needed to rebuild and strengthen. And one of that was, we organize, which is, building the muscle of our movement. And then there's mobilize, which is flexing those muscles. But we needed to put something in between that speaks to the recovery time after doing something big. We need to give time and space to recover those muscles after flexing in those moments. And so as the world slowly opened up and borders were coming down, we didn't go straight into mobilizing. We actually spent a little over a year of just giving resources to our teams to rebuild their teams in their communities. Recovery time, whether it was having pizza lunch with people you haven't seen in a long time, reconnecting with people. And it speaks to the way we take care of our relationships in our communities. And we made that a priority in our strategy. And it basically like redesigned the way we like send out our work to our network. And so, we hope we have less burnout with this structure. We hope that we build capacity in other ways. So our team secretariat, small team, but we also look at our partners and our families and our communities to help carry a lot of the different pieces of our work. We also make sure that our models and the structures that we use to describe our work is sustainable. And this was a lesson that our team experienced a couple of years ago when we lost a very close person in, I guess, not just to our friendships, but she was responsible for creating the Pacific Climate Warriors Network. And when she passed away suddenly, all of that knowledge and experience, it all went with her. And so we had to like rebuild our network and find those pieces and build that puzzle again. And so the way we structure and come up with models is because how do we avoid that like holding of information, and how do we encourage more sharing and making sure that this work survives even beyond our time? I don't know, George, if you want to add anything to that.
Hitting the nail on the head there, Jay. And I think one of the things we've also used in the Pacific team is we do let our network know that it's okay to just step back, take some time off, and then come back when you're ready. I mean, that's important because I know with this work, it's like full steam ahead. You have to be in it to win it. But then, it's okay to just take a step back at times and let them know that we'll always be here. The work will always be there. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That was extremely important for what we're experiencing here as well. The loss of that intellectual capacity and experience. And I'm seeing Hanan has her hand up, so you can go ahead.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm sorry for being a bit late, so I'm not entirely sure if this question was answered, but I was just wondering, with the kind of extensive network that you all have, how do you prioritize what activities you do? Like, what's that process like with working internally as well as like dealing with your members, as well as prioritizing what's happening in like the global and general climate space?
I'll go, and then G, just fill in whatever I forget. Excellent question. We prioritize what is happening in the Pacific, and this is very important for our team to know because our diaspora teams are growing much faster and much bigger than our island teams, and it's very easy for us to like forget our priorities. Like, we tend to want to serve the pace that our diaspora teams are giving us because, this work is important and it's urgent, but we tend to forget that the pace and the situation in the Pacific is very different. And so for us, we prioritize what happens in the Pacific in our island teams, but we use that as a guide to like keep us grounded in our work and not fall for the, I guess, like the demands of the Western world, even though it's important, but this is how we like stay true to the things we tell the world about the Pacific. And hopefully that made sense. George, do you want to jump in? I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah, no worries, Jay. I think first and foremost, yes, plus to what Jay mentioned, and also as a global organization with the particular moments that happen, we do prioritize that together with work in the Pacific. So I think one of the lessons learned over the years is that a lot of our partners and organizations do come to us seeking assistance and help, and as part of our movement facing work, we do support them, but it's hard at times with the limited capacity we have. So yeah, definitely just prioritizing centering the work in the Pacific and also global moments.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I do have a little interesting concept because I love this thing about islands being so similar in our vulnerabilities, but then we have such different cultures, right? So this is something that fascinates me because it's a lot to do with colonization, changing the peoples that are in the different islands. Because, for example, in my situation, my indigenous people of the Caribbean was so displaced. So I love that the Pacific have that connection still to the indigenous technology and knowledge and experience. And, you have the same foods that your ancestors would have been able to consume, being protected so well. But in our situation here in the Caribbean, it's so different because I feel like if there's no connection with the land that we're on, so that is something that I personally have been struggling with. So I don't know if you guys have any word of advice to somehow get our people to connect back to that nature that I think you guys still have the root to.
I'm like living proof of how this work has helped me like do that internal work myself of like identity and like belonging to community. And it's something we don't explicitly tell our network that, oh, if you join this work, you're going to find yourself. But we let that magic kind of like just unfold and it happen on its own. But which is why storytelling it's not only a powerful tool in our activism, but it's also been a very powerful tool to have our warriors feel that their stories matter. And you'll find that a lot of the stories are very similar, like displacement, living away from home, growing up without the same access to culture as others. There is definitely an assumption in this work that all of us are like we all have the same grasp on culture, but we definitely don't. This is definitely a learning journey for me. But yeah, activism happens here. And then there's like this personal growth of identity. It happens almost parallel to it. And a lot of our warriors experience that when we do our storytelling workshops. And when we see that like magic and all our insides feel all warm, that's basically enough for our young people to feel that they can do this work and that they can lead their communities. So like, yeah, a lot of things happen, nuances happen at the same time, and culture is a very complex conversation to have and hold for us as well. But that's where we have our elders to help guide us as well. And so in the Pacific, we want to ensure that we are not just focusing on the islands that represent Polynesia. We want to say we also have a network in Micronesia, in Melanesia. But the reality is Polynesia is much bigger in the region. And so we will naturally have more people represented in one region. But we try to be more active and intentional to like have enough representation from different parts of our region so that our like narrative matches the work on the ground, basically. I don't know if that makes sense, but G
Love
is,
it. Thank you.
I don't know if G, if you're still there, but he's on the opposite side of the spectrum to me. He is definitely giving chief vibes with his cultural knowledge. Yeah, I don't know, G, if you wanted to add anything. Hopefully I got it.
Well, that's okay. Thank you so much for that. That helped me a lot. So I'm just gonna give a last call for any questions. We have time for just one more question. Okay, so as we have just 60 seconds left on this call, I just wanted to express a warm thank you. And thank you for waking up so early, Jay, again. We always celebrate when we have to wake up early and we make it. And thank you so much, George, as well. I just wanted to also thank the interpreters so much for all of their work and the team from CCN and all our members. And I think I'm seeing some new people that joined, but they're no longer here. So I just wanted to say thank you all very, very much. And I'll just hand over to Amira if you want to close.
No, nada más, otra vez mencionar que mil gracias por estar
Yeah, I
aquí.
want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge.
Como siempre, esperamos seguir hablando,
And like always, we hope to continue in conversation and collaboration in whatever we can support you from our islands to your islands. We would like to continue working together in unison.
Muchas gracias y
And thank you.
que tenga un excelente resto de su día.
And have a beautiful rest of your day. And thank you and have a great evening for the rest of us that we're on this side of the world. Thank you so much.
Recording
Thank you.
stopped.
Have a good night, everyone. Have a good day, everyone else.